Hi everyone and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
And we're talking about dried persimmons. Now, persimmons are a kind of fruit. You describe them as like, what was it? Sort of orangey?
Yeah, orangey. They look to me like a little bit like a square tomato.
Okay. And
a square orange tomato.
Sort of like a little star-shaped leaf at the top, don't they?
Yeah.
Now, we often eat these dry, and we often get them in Taiwan from Xinpu Township in Hsinchu County. But why there?
Well, because there they have the perfect conditions for drying them. They only have a little bit of rain, they have some nice sun, it's windy, it's not, it's not going to make them spoil.
But the persimmons don't preserve and dry themselves.
Of course.
It's the Hakka people who do it. And they use an old method. This comes from centuries ago when they needed to dry the fruit so they could transport it easily.
Right, because they needed to keep moving because they were usually fleeing from wars and trying to escape conflicts. And so because of this, dried persimmons became their main food source, and it became a very important symbol for Hakka people.
That's right. Now today we're going to learn about how the fruits are dried and what else is done with them. Let's read through the article first.
Reading.
Drying and dyeing persimmons in Hsinpu Township. Persimmon drying begins with picking the fruit when it's 70% ripe. They're then washed and peeled. Hakka workers don't use the modern method of baking the persimmons on low heat. Instead, they lay the persimmons out on 2-meter-tall bamboo baskets to dry for 7 to 10 days. The persimmons are then pressed flat and packaged for sale. At Weiweijia Persimmon Tourist Farm, visitors can view every step of the persimmon drying process. Workers save the persimmon peels to make dyes for cloth. Persimmon dye ranges from orange to brown to gray, and the colors become deeper over time. Artists and people in the persimmon dyeing industry began teaching this special local craft in 2005 by holding classes. The Hsinchu County Persimmon Dyeing Culture Association was officially founded in 2010. Its classes focus on design skills, dyeing techniques, and making bags, puppets, and other items. Along with producing dried fruit, persimmon dyeing has become a unique and creative industry in Hsinchu.
Okay, so our article today starts off by talking about a little bit more about persimmon drying. So persimmon drying begins with picking the fruit when it's 70% ripe. Okay, yeah, I guess you would have to measure that by looking at it.
I was going to say, do they kind of get some kind of measurement, like this is 69, leave it on? No, they probably get a pretty good idea. So not completely ripe, but most of the way there. But what do we mean by ripe?
Okay, well, ripe here is an adjective that talks about usually fruit specifically. It's when a fruit is fully grown and ready to pick and eat or use for other things. So like if you have bananas, when they are ripe, they're fully yellow. If they're not ripe, they'll be a little bit green or maybe very green. Avocados are another one. If an avocado is ripe, you can tell by feeling it. You can squeeze it and it'll be a little bit soft. Yeah, or strawberries, they'll turn fully red, they won't be green or white. The verb for ripe is ripen. So if a fruit gets ripe, it ripens. Now, when it's ripe, make sure that you eat it right away or use it right away because you don't want to let it rot. Rotting is when it turns into a big mess and you can't eat it anymore. Yeah, we don't want that. So we want it to be ripe. So an example of ripe, our tomatoes are big, red, and ripe. So let's pick them and make some salsa with them.
I'm going to add some science about ripe here
because
it's when the sugars really start to develop.
That makes sense.
Okay, so ripe fruits are a lot sweeter than when they're not ripe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So some things you don't want them to be kind of really too sweet, but so you get them just before they're ripe. Because if they're completely, all the bits of it has turned into the really sweet sugar, then it makes it harder. I think that's why they pick these persimmons before they're 100% ripe.
So they want them to be a little bit more, what, sour?
A little bit more, maybe not sour, but kind of more solid. Because it's a question of the sugars turning into different kinds of sugars.
I see.
Very scientific. I studied science a long time ago, but it's all about how the sugar developing into the really sweet kinds of sugars.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So they pick the persimmons. The article then says they're then washed and peeled.
Oh,
So
okay.
to peel something is to remove the peel or kind of the outer skin from a fruit or a vegetable. Now, most of the time, the peel, if we use it as a noun, can be eaten. So apple, you can eat the peel.
Right.
Potatoes, you can eat the outer skin. Even oranges, believe it or not, you can eat the outer skin of an orange.
Yeah, I know that you use lemon skin in cooking a lot.
That's right. Now, bananas, people don't generally eat the banana's peel. And to peel a banana...
Sometimes they do.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I hate the things. Now, with a banana, you peel it by doing that. You take off the skin from the top, that kind of thing. And as we say, the verb peel means to remove the outer layer. We can even use peel to remove the outer layer of something else, like you might peel off your jacket when you get indoors.
Yeah, of
Just
course.
being a bit creative with the language. Here's an example of the more regular use of peel as a verb. After peeling the potatoes, Jim cooked them in boiling water.
Yeah, so there are some things we want to peel, some things we don't need to peel, but it sounds like they're wanting to peel the persimmons as part of the drying process. So the article goes on to say, Hakka workers don't use the modern method of baking the persimmons on low heat. So it sounds like these days, if they're drying persimmons, most people will want to bake them instead?
Yeah, kind of put them in the oven, not too hot, and just let the heat kind of dry them out and
Right.
get the water out.
Yeah.
But that's the modern method. Now remember yesterday we used the word method to mean the kind of the process of doing something, how it's done. But they don't use the modern method. The Hakka people obviously do something a bit more traditional.
Right, of course.
Okay, and we find out what it is. We see instead they lay the persimmons out on 2-meter tall bamboo baskets to dry for 7 to 10 days. So not a quick in the oven, out in maybe a couple of hours, but a long natural process of drying quite high off the ground.
Yeah, so it sounds like maybe this would create like a different sort of flavor, or maybe it makes a better quality dried persimmon.
I would expect so. Normally if you cook something, it does lose some of its sort of good stuff, its
Yes.
nutrients. So if you let it happen naturally, I guess maybe that doesn't happen.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
It's good a reason as any.
And the sun could bring out some additional kinds of...
Exactly, it'll help ripen the rest of the sugars, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. Okay, so the article goes on to say the persimmons are then pressed flat and then packaged for sale. Okay, so we're going to go on and learn about this word press. Okay, so here we have this verb press when we're talking about what the Hakka people do to persimmons after they're dried for 7 to 10 days. Press is a verb that means to push something down using a heavy weight or a high amount of force, so it's flatter or it has a certain shape. So for example, people often press fresh flowers to make it so they are completely flat and they will last for a long time. If you are wearing a suit to an interview, if you want your clothes to look nice, you might press them with an iron to remove the wrinkles and make them look very smooth. Another use of the word press is as a noun. That's like a book press, which is a machine that will print a book or print a newspaper. The noun form of press can also be pressure. So applying pressure to something will be the same thing as pressing it. But back to the verb form of press, here's another example. I picked some beautiful wild flowers today. I'm going to press them and make them into bookmarks.
Okay, so that's part of the process. These persimmons, they're pressed, kind of get some of that last water out to make them really dry.
Yeah.
They'll be then packaged up or kind of put into bags or packs or whatever, and that's done for sale. Now, if something is for sale, people can buy it. Now, what it means in our article is that the persimmons are put into packages so they can be sold in markets, in stores, wherever. Now, for sale is different from on sale. On sale usually means something is available at a lower price, whereas for sale just means that someone can buy it. Another example is that someone's house might be for sale, so that means the owners want to sell it. It is
Right.
available to buy.
Yeah, so for sale and on sale have very different meanings. Something can be for sale and on sale.
That's true.
All right, so the article goes on to talk about what happens after, well, not what happens after they're sold, but where you can go buy some of these persimmons.
And see everything going on.
Yeah, exactly. See how it's done. So the article says, at Weiweijia Persimmon Tourist Farm, visitors can view every step of the persimmon drying process. That sounds kind of exciting.
Yeah, and it probably is a really nice smelling place to walk around.
Yeah,
All that
for
sort
sure.
of fruity stuff in the air. You know, the weather there is supposed to be really great, so awesome. But it's not just for eating. These persimmons can be used for other things. Now, remember we said that they are peeled.
Yes.
Okay, they peel them off. And now we see why. Workers, or at least what they do with it,
Yeah, exactly.
workers save the persimmon peels, so there's the word as a noun. They save the peels to make dyes for cloth.
Okay.
So it's using everything.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
dye, and I'm really glad I'm teaching this part of the article with you. Dye, D-Y-E, be careful to spell it correctly. Dye is a natural or chemical preparation that changes something's color. Natural dyes are fruits, other plants, even insects.
Right.
Now, dye is mostly used to change the color of clothes and hair.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if something is dyed, it generally doesn't change color again very easily, although the color can fade in time.
Right.
The word dye can also be used as a verb, meaning to change something's color with a dye. Kat dyed her hair.
Right, exactly. I bleached my hair, then I dyed my hair. So I had to add a color to make it into this color that it is right now. All right, so the article goes on to talk about persimmon dye. Wonder if I could dye my hair with persimmons.
That's worth a go.
Could be interesting. Probably smells good.
Yeah.
All right, persimmon dye ranges from orange to brown to gray. Interesting. And the colors become deeper over time. So like Pat said, some dyes fade, but it sounds like these ones don't fade. They become actually more colorful.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So now we're going to learn about a phrase, range from something to something. Okay, so we're talking about this phrase, range from something to something. So we said that persimmon dyes range in color from orange to brown to gray. If something ranges from A to B or A to B to C, it means it can come in A, B, or C, or anything in between. So persimmon dyes might be other colors between orange and brown and gray. So if we're talking about a range of ages, people might range in age from young kids to grandparents, or a range of careers from artists to engineers, or anything in between, or a range of food. A restaurant might serve a range from hamburgers to cakes. So a range can be any different thing with lots of things in between.
So that's one phrase. Another phrase we used in that sentence was over time. The dyes kind of change over time.
Right.
Depending on how old they are, maybe they change how deep the colors are or what the colors actually look like and do.
Yeah.
Now we use over time to mean as time passes. And when we use this phrase, we don't specify how much time passes. You can kind of have to guess it from the context. Now here it probably means quite a long time because dyes wouldn't really change their color quickly.
Right.
Otherwise they wouldn't be very good for their purpose.
No.
So maybe if it's a year-old dye, it's orange. If it's 2 years, it gets darker. If it's 3 years, it's grey. I don't know, but you'd expect something like that. And over time just kind of means as time passes.
Right, of course. So, in the article, we're talking about these persimmon dyeing techniques. So artists and people in the persimmon dyeing industry began teaching this special local craft in 2005 by holding classes. So it sounds like they want other people to learn how to do it too.
Cool.
Yeah, so craft here is a noun that is a way of making something handmade, or it's a creative process. And usually it's for making something that isn't just art. It's not just something that you're going to hang on your wall or a sculpture. It has a practical use. So something like sewing. Sewing is a craft for making clothes. Candle making is also a craft. Or things like metalworking or even making furniture is another kind of craft. I guess you could also call cooking a craft.
Yeah, I would say so. It involves a lot of skill. There's a bit of art. There's people, learning things in history. And you get something you can eat out of it.
Exactly.
Now, of course, dyeing is a craft because you use this to change the color of, say, clothes.
Yeah.
And then you've got special kinds of clothes. Now, these classes started being taught in 2005. So, 14 years ago now. But as is usual with things over time, they get a bit more organized, they get a bit more structured, and so it stops being just one or two people and starts becoming more of a kind of a real thing.
Yeah.
And we see this in the article. It says the Hsinchu County Persimmon Dyeing Culture Association. It's a long name.
Yeah.
This association was officially founded in 2010. So after sort of 5 years after it started, it sort of gradually more people got involved and they go, okay, let's kind of make this a group to help organize everything. And, if we're going to charge money for it, we can arrange that. If we can make sure everything's done properly and people are teaching it in the right way and no one's sort of getting in and taking advantage of it and so on. Let's create this association. Now, an association is a group that is put together for a particular purpose. So in this case, it's a group who are kind of looking after the interests of preserving the traditions and culture of persimmon dyeing.
Yeah.
That's their kind of idea. It's the people who are involved, maybe the people who know a lot about it, the teachers of the classes. They're formed into a group. Other associations could help people, they're charity associations, or for all sorts of other purposes. Political associations who try to get people elected, school and teacher-parent associations where the teachers and the parents work together to find out what's best for their kids at the school. So this association was founded.
Right, it was founded, and found here is a verb. I know you think we're probably saying past tense of find. It is not the past tense of find. It is a different verb. So found as a present tense verb means to start something, like to start a company, to start an association, or a store, or an organization. You could even talk about somebody founding a country.
Yep.
So of course the past tense of found is founded. It's a regular verb. And then the noun would be founder, a person who founds something. So if you found something, it means you are the person who started it. Yeah, so an example of this might be, my mother founded this bakery 20 years ago, and since then she's opened 2 more shops elsewhere in town.
Awesome. So this association kind of tries to make things a bit more official, make a bit more organized. We see that its classes focus on design skills, dyeing techniques, and making bags, puppets, and other items. So
That sounds fun.
yeah, they get involved in a lot of things. Now we're going to look at a particular word in there, technique, dyeing techniques. The word technique means the way in which something is done. It's kind of similar to method. We use technique to usually mean something either artistic or scientific and how that's done, although the word can be used for anything. Now, when we say technique, it's implied that doing a technique correctly usually requires skill and practice. It's very difficult to do it perfectly straight away. You learn it, you practice it, and you get the technique right. The word technique can also mean a skillful or efficient way of doing something. Here's an example. It took the baseball player several years to learn the right technique for throwing a split-finger fastball. It's a difficult thing to do in baseball, so it took him a while to learn the correct technique for doing it.
All right, going on with the article here, we're talking about, how, persimmons are used for a bunch of different things.
Yeah, food, dyeing, t-shirts, bags, the lot.
Yeah, sounds fun. I would like to go visit that association and try out some of those techniques. All right, so along with producing dried fruit, persimmon dyeing has become a unique and creative industry in Hsinchu. So it sounds like they've got, a lot of cultural capital kind of built up around this persimmon. All right, so along with here is a phrase that we see that means as well as, or at the same time as something else. So along with this dying, or along with the drying, we have the dying. Along with the dying, we have the drying. So it could mean something is true at the same time as another thing. So along with A, B also happens, that sort of thing.
And we describe some of these things they do as unique. Unique means different from anything else. Now, often we use unique to mean the only one of its kind, but in more casual conversation, unique can describe anything that's special, remarkable, and also slightly unusual.
So like if you have a unique sort of view on the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And then we talk about it being a creative industry in Shimpu. So creative here is an adjective that means using your imagination to think of new ways to do things, or more efficient or effective ways to do things, like finding new ways to use persimmon dyes, or finding new ways to use persimmons, bar none, like you use them for drying, you use them for dyeing. Creative can also just mean, as an industry, mainly it involves creating things and making crafts. So the verb here, of course, is create, and a noun for a person who is creative is a creator, or a person who creates or starts something. So an example of creative. Jade's hobbies are mainly in creative fields. For example, she likes painting, music, dance, and writing.
It's a lot of creative things. All right, well, that's all we've got time for in this article about persimmon dyeing, drying, eating, and associations, which means it's now time to go for our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So the question is, what other traditional crafts can you find around Taiwan? And how are they being kept alive?
That's a really good question. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of traditional
Yes.
crafts you can find around Taiwan. The one that comes to mind for me was something I saw during Ghost Month, or just before Ghost Month,
Right.
where you know how they create these paper like houses and cars and things like this for the dead family
for
members.
funerals,
yeah,
yeah.
and they burn them.
Yes.
So there was a workshop teaching people how to make those.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a pretty traditional craft, and that's a sort of the fact that it's still being taught and people want to learn it is really cool, because getting those things provides the, you know, if people have lost a relative, they get a lot of comfort
Yeah.
from that, and I think, wow, this is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I saw some that were like passports.
Passport,
Yeah,
like
a
paper
ghost
passport.
money paper passport
No
and
kidding.
foreign money.
Wow.
So that
they can
you know,
travel in the afterlife.
Exactly, and that's a really cool thing, and it's still being kept alive. There's a lot of shops near Xingtian Temple, not far from where I
yeah.
live, where you can see a lot of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, we are out of time for today. Thanks for watching and learning about persimmons with us, everyone. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Kat.
Talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Drying and dyeing persimmons in Shimpu Township. Persimmon drying begins with picking the fruit when it's 70% ripe. They're then washed and peeled. Hakka workers don't use the modern method of baking the persimmons on low heat. Instead, they lay the persimmons out on 2-meter-tall bamboo baskets to dry for 7 to 10 days. The persimmons are then pressed flat and packaged for sale. At Weiweijia Persimmon Tourist Farm, visitors can view every step of the persimmon drying process. Workers save the persimmon peels to make dyes for cloth. Persimmon dye ranges from orange to brown to gray, and the colors become deeper over time. Artists and people in the persimmon dyeing industry began teaching this special local craft in 2005 by holding classes. The Hsinchu County Persimmon Dyeing Culture Association was officially founded in 2010. Its classes focus on design skills, dyeing techniques, and making bags, puppets, and other items. Along with producing dried fruit, persimmon dyeing has become a unique and creative industry in Shimpu.
Vocabulary Review.
Ripe. When these fruits are ripe, they change color from green to yellow. Peel. Monica peeled the orange so her daughter could eat it. Press. After the grapes were pressed, the juice was used to make wine. Found. This company was founded by a group of local businessmen in 1979. Technique. Ryan learned some new cooking techniques from his father, who works in a restaurant. Creative. A team of creative artists was brought in to design the covers of the company's books.
智慧小補帖
Dye. Persimmon dyeing. Craft. Association. Unique.
以上節目是由活用空中美語製作，活用空中美語雜誌，請洽詢全國各大書店。如欲索取試聽教材，請來電02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上網查詢，網址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net